And I like to put the captions on just because sometimes it's easy to understand everybody. Okay, yay! Continued or brand new or whatever we want to call it, but this one, Patreon session. It's very exciting. So I love being face to face with everybody. Let's start with, did you, after last session, if you were here, were there any insights or anything that we were able to integrate from the Celestial Realm session last time?
Lonice, you want to go first?
All right. Yeah, definitely for me. One thing that was really big though is, I've been receiving my own like messages and downloads, and it is a challenge as you're stepping into that to know all of the things, and for one, I know I've felt connections to certain things, and I know that I've been receiving messages, but I haven't known exactly who I'm connecting to, who like are my guides. And when Danielle said that last week, it was like, oh my God, because that's the exact question I've been kind of like put front. I'm like, I'd really like to know who, so that I can feel like I can connect more in my work. And yeah, so just the confirmation, because it was all like, yeah, you've heard all these before.
Wasn't it that you like and your son chose each other? Like it was like the both of you like existed because of the other?
Yeah, well, that and the connection with the Arcturians and Pleiadians, all of it. They were both, I've definitely felt the connection with my son specifically, and felt that it was like very, like a very soul connection in our work, together, and that we were a very important part of each other's, I don't want to say missions, but like our work, our roles,
Yes.
and so that's been really great, because now I've been really diving into my human design and getting to know that more, like trying to understand it, because I was really intimidated when I first looked at it. It's a bunch of numbers and
Funny thing, Stephanie and I just had my human, that was my Christmas present to myself, was a human design reading. And it was funny because Stephanie was like, okay, so this is like the subconscious and this is like the personality, and you're going to be like, oh, I totally get that. Like, oh, really? That's what it is. And it was amazing. And how like the question relates to the celestial realm is that when I came back to Stephanie and was going to do like one-on-one working, my daughter had overheard me working with the magical mother, and she's like, ooh, and like we got Stephanie sent us a book, and like it was a card, and she goes, is that the magical mother? And I was like, well, that's one of them. And so we had lost power over the week, and I was like, I need to get on the magical mother call. And my daughter's like ears perked up, and she was like, magical mother? And she sits down with me, and then she looks at me and she goes, she's human. And I just like laughed because like when we got off of last week's call, I'm like, Mom, I'm like, we used to be light beams, and like we came here and we could like switch in between dimensions, but now we can't switch in between dimensions. And it was just funny how my 5-year-old looked at me and was like, she's not wearing the right body. Like it's not. And then she's like, my mommy before you, she really used to like this song, but not you, because it was her. And this, she's 5 and she's on the spectrum. And just like her telling me all of these things, and then the synchronicities, right? Like Alexa plays like a song I don't want to hear, and I'm like, I don't like how I feel in my body. And I'm like, ooh, my magical mothering call is coming up. And then it plays my favorite Christmas song.
Alexa, stop. Sorry.
And I'm like, oh no, you're good. Your mom.
You said the word and she heard you through the
She's all
Zoom.
blah blah blah. I'm like, what? Sorry. I'll be right back.
What happened? Did a baby come in?
No, you said the A word. You said her name and she started talking to Lonice through the Zoom call.
Oh,
Her A went off and started talking to Lonice.
oh. Okay, I like that's a thing. I guess like
You can't say the name because
Sorry.
otherwise their ears perk up and they listen to everything.
that's. Oh God, that's even scarier. But I like her the music on demand. I waited. I was very diligent. I waited until December. No, it was Thanksgiving Day that I put Christmas music on.
I was wanting to go early. I waited till the day after. My son was like, we have to do Thanksgiving, Mom. Like, it's its own thing. We gotta, like, we can't skip it over. He's like, let's do that. And then we'll go into that. That was funny.
I was like,
okay, fine.
who's making the bird? And then my husband's like, I love how you guys call it the bird. I'm like, well, isn't it called the bird? Anyways.
That's funny. Thanksgiving fun. Holidays. Man, well, since we're on the holiday, holidays are here, right? There's all sorts of things happening. What if we look at some entities that attach to us around the holidays?
Perfection.
And perfection, the entity of perfection happens to you, Natasha?
Comes out even more that I'm not being the mom that I want to be by wearing 17 different hats and doing Waldorf and being Christian and doing this and making sure we have cookies and all of these hats. And it's kind of very overwhelming. But then you don't have to be that. Once you wake up and have awareness, you don't have to be that anymore.
No, I haven't even started. Well, that's not true. Packages have started arriving in our mailbox from the mothers, as I call them, my mom and Travis's mom. And I'll get calls beforehand. A package has arrived and you have to wrap it for yourself or for somebody else. Okay.
That's what Aaron said. He goes, aren't you going to wrap my present? And I was like, it came in the FedEx box and you don't know what it is. It's wrapped.
Yeah. So when I mention the term entities, this is usually the best way on a generic or general call to tap in, because when somebody comes into my space, usually I'm like there with the tourmaline and I'll get the tourmaline out. Black tourmaline is my favorite. And so usually I just went like this. So the neck, somebody's got neck stuff going on. So you take the black tourmaline. Does anybody have neck stuff?
Yeah. Girl, you know.
Lonice, do you have any neck stuff going on right now?
I have an area in my neck that's been funky for a while. Every time my husband rubs it, I feel it like shoot up my whole head. It's crazy.
Yes. So like this whole thing.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. It's the right side too.
On the left.
Opposite. Yes. All right. So Natasha, if you've got neck stuff going on, and anybody else that has neck stuff going on that is going to be watching the recording of this, so I want you to really get in here and realize that the tightness that is in your neck, the tightness that is happening in this area, it's not of you. So it's affecting the muscles in here. It's affecting like all the way up through the occipital bone into the back of the head. It goes, and actually it's like, so if I could describe to you in the back, so here's the bottom of your skull and it like fans up and out. So all the way back is what I'm feeling. So I really like acknowledging the entities first and finding out when they came into our life. So Natasha, I know you have pain in different areas. Does your neck Do you have stuff going on in your neck as well, Natasha?
So I had to have my neck fused at C1 and C2.
Okay. So in this way, the neck really is the link. The neck keeps you separated in your brain, which at least in your human design are the top two, the triangle and the third eye. Are those defined or closed? You've got
Defined.
defined. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So it's not so much of an issue if you have those two defined because they're consistent. But there is a separation happening between your thoughts and your third eye and your throat, even though it's defined. So it's creating a blockage here from allowing you to really speak. So Natasha, with the fact that your neck is actually fused, it's almost like it's separating the top portions because hers are not defined, the top two, from her throat, which is defined, keeping it so that she has this blockage of being able to interact or have a flow between the two. Okay. Already, I'm like, oh, okay, acknowledging it just like already makes it a little interesting. I would like for you, pen and paper if you have it. You can always pause this if you're watching the recording, but to ask the entity at what age it attached to this part of your body. You can just place the pin on the paper and write, or you may see a number and then write it down, or hear a number in your mind's eye, whatever the number is.
So earlier, remember when we were talking about like talking and how it would feel? What if I got a picture? Is that the body talking or is that still the mind?
Yep, a picture is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you get a number of at what age this entity attached to you?
I saw it like in utero, like I was a baby, like before I was even here.
Okay.
I felt the number 13.
Yeah, perfect. I knew there was a 13 with somebody. Okay. In utero, so that came through your mom. So your mom, does your mom have neck issues, Natasha?
My grandma did.
Oh, that's right. You and your grandma share the same aspects, correct?
Yes, but she had a car accident and I didn't.
Okay, interesting. But it passed down generationally through your mom into your neck.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's ask the entity, in what ways is it trying to protect us?
It just sends me down to my lower back where my shoulders are.
So that would be support. So it supports you. It's also an aspect of betrayal, having stuff in between your shoulder blades, Natasha. So if your grandmother before and after the car accident, if after the car accident she felt that her neck betrayed her, or that her body betrayed her.
I don't think that it's definitely the she was seeking validation. Like that was another synchrony that came through after our talk. The family owned a trucking company, and every time that I thought of anger, because somebody told me, I want you to sit in the anger. I don't want you to constantly run away from the anger. And then every time that I would get mad at somebody telling me that I needed to sit with it, I would see a truck, like a trucking company truck. And then that was what the family ran on. Everything was what the importance was. But yet it was also that my great grandmother couldn't have children, but yet they adopted, but yet they still treated them awful, and that the business was still where everything was. So it's really funny how it's repeated itself, that I needed to have children and really see the importance of them when family members sought out other family members through adoption and still didn't treat them right.
So my question is, that I feel like this entity is not just a way to support your needs, but I feel like there's also this connection between this aspect. It's gone. It'll come back. It'll come back. Lonice, did you get a insight?
A little, it just seems a little incomplete, but part of it, it felt like it's like I heard it say, so you could or so you wouldn't speak.
Whoa,
Mm-hmm.
good job going deep.
Okay. Yes. So at 13, was there a moment in time that you started voicing your opinions more so than any other time?
Yes.
Okay. So it allowed for you to voice these things that you were never able to say before as a child because of the punishment or because of the fear of rejection or all of these things. And then it also held you back from saying certain things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this entity is really there as a protective aspect. But the entity in the way that it is now has not grown with your transformation. It's stayed in that same vibrational space, which is why it's now keeping you stuck and stagnant, sending these pulses of like, no, don't go there. No, don't go there. No, don't go. And every time you do go there, you have an incredible session with somebody, or you do a reading, or you do whatever, you get this like, no, don't go there.
Mm-hmm. It's like it's protecting my fearful inner child in a
Yes.
way, like, oh, don't do that, and then you won't. It's like, yeah, okay.
So vibrationally, it cannot change its own vibration. This would be something that you could either gift to the entity or send the entity off to. This is a choice. We can either integrate these entities and send them into a higher vibrational space if they're willing to. A lot of times they are. Or if you're like, thank you very much for serving me for this amount of time, I now release you of being in service. Either one of these is appropriate. You don't have to keep an entity attachment. In fact, I usually suggest releasing that entity. I used to just transform them, and the vibration was difficult. It was difficult to separate myself from the entity by just transforming it. So I really like sending them off. Thank you. You are free. You're no longer indebted to me. Almost like an indentured servant, of like giving them their freedom back, where these entities get to go choose if they're going to attach to something of the same vibration, or if they're ready to shift and evolve as well. So
Nice.
at
I
one
just thought
point,
of it as, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just the image of like when you give Dobby the sock.
Yeah.
I thought it's gonna make clouds.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, and it is true. So when 7-8 years ago, I guess it was about 8 years, the first time I transformed my first entity. And when I was doing the transformational work, I changed it into something vibrationally that matched what I needed at the time. But I didn't necessarily realize that entities are beings in and of themselves. So while they do leech, they get their energy from us. And I say leech, but they use our energy as a way to fuel themselves. So by freeing them from that connection is severed, leaving us a void or a vacant spot, which I just felt when I said that, like, so having voids or vacant spots is really important because they make us very uncomfortable. We want to fill in the spaces.
Yeah.
So Natasha, in reference to your grandmother, she was coming in and I could feel her energy in that moment. And then it was like she didn't want me to say what I was feeling.
Well, that's an Italian for you. No.
Okay. Yes. I was just trying to get like the privacy aspect was she allowed for me to tap into her energy enough to see like how important her ability to like control and dominate and be the center of attention in a way with the company that she was running. And so the car accident, she really had to use that as a way to continue to control and dominate and manipulate. Does that make sense?
Okay, so that it would be, you're pulling great grandmother energy. You're not pulling grandmother energy.
Okay.
Because so my grandmother was the child during the business. The mother was the like very controlling. Like she only like opened up, like my great grandmother opened up to my mother after her daughter died. She was on her deathbed and my mother was taking care of her. Like I never met Evelyn. But she was a ball buster and she did run the company and she probably was a straight up bitch.
And so your grandmother did need to find some control or footing and was able to find that with this car accident in a way.
So I have no idea the timeline of it, but
Okay.
she ended up, she got sick very young. I mean, 27 years old, and all of it started to like, she couldn't walk, see, or speak within 3 days. And then it all slowly started coming back.
Okay. So from what I'm
Was it
understanding,
with the car accident? Like, that's the thing, is that there was time in between things where it does. So
yes. And so this is where the entity attached to her in between that time, kind of taking over, really giving her the ability to take control. And so she had absolutely no control over her life prior to that moment. And so when the entity took over in this next space, and for you, it's really it's really like
he's just a part. Does that make sense? Like it literally feels like, remember when I said here that I had been here a lot?
Yeah.
Like I go back at least 5 generations of the where this weakness, where this want of being neglected, or not want, but where the neglect comes from. Like I knew at the age of 5 that I was here to break chains, and I didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere like throughout the bloodline. And oh my God, that's funny. I just like drew circles and I literally drew the human design on the oven with the channels.
That's fun.
So hello, synchrony.
And
no, I think
do you want to check in real fast?
What?
Lonice, I feel like, has something to add to this.
Go for it, Louise.
I had a little mouth drop moment because when you said, when you just said that, like a very specific message that has come to me about who I am, the breaker of chains has been like a repeat to me. And
Yeah.
so when you said it specifically like that, I'm sorry, my mouth dropped. I was like, oh my God.
Well, that's why I was like, okay, hold on, let's pause at that energy, because that's a potent energy. So can you ask this entity if this entity is connected to the breaker of chains?
Above my neck or hers?
Both of you.
Okay.
I don't know, I get sad. I feel sad when I think of asking that question.
Okay, go ahead and ask it though, because it's really important for you to honor your emotional response and then to let your body do the action.
I feel it in the heart center.
Okay. Lonice, do you have a response?
I felt a no, almost like got a tighter grip when I ask.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So this entity really is feeding off of you staying in these generational themes. So it's really important to ask these questions because you'll get a very clear sense of like that sadness, Natasha, of like, nope, we're here to keep in the line of command. We're here to stay in this bondage. We are here. The vibration that it is feeding off of you is really that vibration of consistency or staying in that generational theme. It wants that generational theme energy. It feeds off of that vibration. And when it tells you you can speak this way, but we're not going to allow you to speak this way, it held you from actually breaking the chains and keeping you in a space of control or domination or these influxes that had happened generationally.
Luis, I don't know if this has happened in your journey yet, but like when they're like, oh, you're going crazy. And it's like, no, I'm not going crazy. It's the fact that I've woken up and all of you have conditions in order for you to interact with me. And I'm waking up to that. And it is the crappiest feeling ever when the people that you love have conditions upon you in order to receive that love. That to me, I think is an entity that is really groundbreaking, especially from the people that are who are there to be your protectors, and yet they subconsciously put an entity on you that you didn't even know that they had on them.
And so nobody can put entities on other people. They attract to a vibrational energy field.
Okay. I'm saying, like, okay, if you grow up in an environment, right, where it's constant negativity, like your mind, I think why my uncle and my mom did not get affected was because I have a very, very strong mind, but they're almost like ignorant to their strong, like they're like, I don't know.
They might have defined headspaces.
That's true.
And so when you look at it in that way, when you look at a defined headspace, it's going to react and act very differently than somebody who has an open headspace. And even within open headspaces, I allow my open headspace to stay blank. I allow it to access the cosmic mother's womb of no thing, Natasha. So as an open headspace, you have access to this cosmic universal no thing energy, and it's literally just a black void. I don't allow thoughts to just ramble around in my brain anymore.
Okay.
When you have a closed or defined headspace, you consistently have the same thoughts. Lonice is tormented sometimes by the same recurring thoughts all her life. She does
reliving it over and over and over.
She does not get the influence from outside open sourced headspace. Yes, she can open up her cosmic channels and do astral travel and things like that. But this is the biggest difference in human design is I can no longer talk in generics about individuals' experiences, knowing what I am learning and understanding more fully about human design. I cannot tell somebody you need to go into the space of the cosmic mother where the no thing is and access the black thoughts of, the black void of thoughts where it's just this vast open thing. Because Lonice would be like, that's impossible. And it is impossible. Mm-hmm. So for you will have to turn your thoughts into physical things that you can see at first in order to start transmuting the memories that are in there, decoding those hard-lined thoughts that are in there. Rudolf Steiner gives an amazing example of looking at something that is decaying while there is something blooming at the same time. So
it's dead and then something new is growing out of it, or like just taking a dying object and a living and putting them side by side.
Or taking a rotting stump and watching a new tree grow out of it, or taking a rotting stump and seeing it covered in mushroom life. Taking a dilapidated house and watching like jasmine bloom all over it. Even just imagining these things gives us a very contradictory, we're drawn in and we have these conflicting emotions happening simultaneously. And then it's the same thing, like if you were to think of a crystal and a plant simultaneously. Which is why I integrate them, and then add an animal to this. So there's a cheetah. Okay, so you're thinking of the crystal, a plant, and a cheetah, and their energies don't, like, you're like, okay, there's a crystal, it doesn't move, there's a plant, I can see it kind of moving in like the wind, and then there's a cheetah. Like, so they give us these different impressions, and when we think about them all simultaneously, we kind of like rupture these thought processes, right? Because you can't think about a crystal, an eastern red cedar, and a cheetah while reliving past memories, Lonice, right? I mean, it's impossible to do. So by triggering these occult practices, which is what they are, they're ancient occult practices of misfiring the brain so that you reopen the spiritual seeing or vision. So seeing the blooming and decaying simultaneously, looking at a crystal and a plant and an animal simultaneously, and feeling all of the energies, and almost like really tuning into, and this is where crystal gazing came from, where you're gazing into the crystal and you have simultaneously a plant right behind it. So you're gazing through the crystal into a plant with maybe a picture of a animal, and you're pulling all those they don't go together. The energies don't blend, they don't mesh, and it shifts vibrationally in your being. Even talking about it, check back in with that entity and see if it's like really not happy with the vibration that you're sending into it right now.
Yeah, I do feel like less tightness, but also like a little activated buzz.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's one practice. Those are two great practices to start shifting, whether you have an open head center or a closed or defined head center and third eye. These are great practices to really start breaking up those old programmings, because whether you have a defined head space or not, we still have programs that are in those spaces. Okay. Tap into that entity one more time. And how does it make you feel? Emotion, I guess an emotion, or feel, it could be either. Does it give you an emotion or a feeling?
Weirdly, it feels like it's been a companion.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
There's this weird feeling of like, I want to let it go, but there's been a connection for so long. It's like, then that fear, that loneliness, worry, it's like, but then you won't be there on my shoulder. Like,
So I want you to be very aware if you decide to let this entity be released from you, and it has to honor that. But as soon as you vibrationally have that same feeling, vibration, it will just come attached again.
mhm.
So I've done so many entity removals, and they'll call me back and they're like, I felt so amazing after this happened, and a few weeks went by and I'm right back to where I was. And I'm like, okay. The entity, you matched that vibration again, because it was like, oh, this void feels so good physically. I feel so much better physically, but emotionally it was feeding you, having this little thing whispering into your ear all the ways in which you should or should not speak, all the ways that you were safe, that you were kept safe by not voicing. So without that companion, you're gonna get into a situation over the next week or two where you're going to have to voice, and you're gonna go, oh my, I don't know if I said the right thing, I don't know if I did that, oh no, I said this thing and I shouldn't have said this thing and I didn't want to, but I did.
And then my head's just gonna go, think about it, think about it, think about it, think about it, replay it, and I'm gonna go, oh.
And then that entity is gonna go, thank you very much. And you're gonna be like, oh crap.
Yeah, I hear it now. It's like, did you miss me?
Yep, because you know you've gotten rid of it before. And
Mhm,
probably not even realizing, just by
mhm.
raising your vibration. You went into a new vibrational space, you were heard, you responded, somebody asked you a question and you like spoke it, and it was like, oh my gosh, vibrationally I can feel it just like all the way. And then as soon as you get approached with something else that's more practical, it goes back into that vibrational being of doubting yourself, or feeling like you said the wrong thing or whatever.
Mhm.
Natasha, what's going on?
So I planned ahead and made myself food, and I'm being asked to walk out and go and spend time with someone and go get food, but the food that they would be able to eat, I would get sick from. So, like, as this is happening, my head is talking and it's like, okay, very dull pain. Nope, that's a sharp pain. And I'm like, oh, that's a warm pain. And I'm like, I really don't like all of these feelings.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable for you to be in your feeling self. I acknowledge. Thank you for taking the time to do it, because it's going to be like exercise. You don't exercise for an hour and a half the first time you exercise.
Yeah, and keep doing it.
You little by little practice every day, and this is a very attainable action step for you, because there's no steps. You just sit in your body and feel.
And like the thing is that like there are some people that are like, you know what, that's not even that hard to do. And it's like, really? You want to play? Like it's really not fun. And that's probably why I have disassociated. And I probably have friggin' all these different pain entities, because I have disassociated for so long, because actually paying attention was crappier than not being here.
Absolutely, 100%. But you, as according to your human design, you are here to experience.
I said that as I was making the fire, okay? As I was trying to get the flame. I'm here for the struggle, and I'm feeling the struggle of this amazing fire not working for me.
See, there you go. Struggle. You'd rather have struggle with fire than something else. So be grateful for the struggle with the fire.
Well, that's what I see. I was trying.
So with your incarnation cross, so Natasha's incarnation cross is to have good food, good love, good sex, and that's what her spirit came here to experience.
It's an eat, pray, love, right? Isn't that? I never saw the movie, but
So your spirit came here to have a physical incarnation, and if you are not able to physically experience these things in your body because you've disconnected at the neck, you are going to get anger and frustration. And that just came through so clearly, Natasha. Does that make sense now?
say it again.
Okay. You came here to physically experience good food, good sex, good intimacy, good friendships in your body. You are cut off at the neck. So being unwilling to experience these things on a physical level is your entire purpose for being in a physical body.
Okay, so sorry, I don't know if it's the ADHD, but like when you said like physically cut off at the neck, the first time I actually saw an entity, physically saw, it was my grandfather. And I was the 3-year-old child, and he came and he just had his head. Never understood why just floating around the room with just his head.
Yep, he's it's all a lineage aspect. So the fact that the generational theme is that the people in your generational timeline were cut off at the neck, physically, emotionally, energetically. If you are to break these timelines, you have these themes, these generational timelines, you have to get into your body.
Is that what Danielle meant by like you're definitely an earth symbol? Because like that's what she said last. She's like, you need to ground your earth.
Yeah,
So
you have a root. Your root is defined. Like you have to become physical. You are not a physical incarnation right now. You are a floating head that doesn't even have definition in their head.
I'm sorry, I had to laugh a little bit about it.
Because your grandfather came to you like, here's the warning.
Like, dude, like he died when
like he wasn't even like upset about it. He's like, I'm the warning. Don't.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
And it was so weird because it was like rocking. It was a rocking chair on a hardwood floor, which we didn't have any hardwood floors. And I'm like, we have carpet, you know, because a 3-year-old mind, it has logic when it's been woken up in the middle of the night and here's a rocking chair in a house that there's no rocking chair. And then like footsteps coming up the stairs and he just entered my room and I'm just sitting there looking at him. The next day we're going to preschool. Hey, was grandpa just buried with his head? Because that's how he came to me. Because I didn't get to go to the funeral.
Mm.
So
yeah.
But this was also 2 years after the man had died.
Right. So you were now at a space that he could come to visit you and you would. So he may have been trying to remove this entity himself. You can ask if that's true or not.
I'm not going to get any answers yet. I'm so blocked.
Just in your body. You felt it in your heart space before. You felt the sadness. What is the emotion?
It's racing.
Yeah. Okay. So your grandfather is most likely still floating around with you, trying to help you through this. So use him as a resource. Even if you're like, okay, make a joke, like floating head grandfather, help me connect to my body. Like they have no, like, there's no judgment. There's no attachment to their stuff on Earth like it was when they were on Earth. So the fact that he appeared to you like that and you remembered that right now is really powerful. So yeah.
Good.
Let's create some space. If you would like to remove this entity, they have to honor our requests. Vibrationally, if you choose not to shift your vibration, it is very easy to ask them to reattach without even being conscious of knowing that you're doing it. So shifting into different vibrational spaces, good food, good sex, good times, nature, gratitude, all of these things shift our vibrational field into a heightened.
All my animals come out.
Yes. So Natasha, I feel like that for you is a way that you know when your vibrational field has shifted is when your animals start coming to you.
It's like Snow White.
Yeah.
Like this is how I'm gonna get my love in.
Yes. Yeah. So if you would like to remove this entity, you will be telling it, not asking it. So you will be telling this entity, like the genie in the bottle, I grant you the wish of freedom. Like you get this wish. Would you like freedom in your own body, or do you want, you know what I mean? Like it's so important to, even if this was your only wish, to release this entity from your being is so important that to give it the freedom to detach from you is a way of giving yourself freedom from living in that vibrational space. Does that make sense? Okay. So when you're ready, I'm going to be doing tourmaline stuff. So when you are ready, I would like for you to tell this entity that you now grant it complete freedom and it is no longer allowed to attach to you. When you feel that it is released, I would like for you to physically take your own hand and travel where it was. And I would like for you to pull out physically with your own hand. Imagine pulling out any remnants of that entity's signature or vibration in that space that it was. Take a breath. Maybe move your neck around, move your shoulders, see if there's a shift. If you sense it lingering, you can simply just let it know. I've granted you your freedom. You are no longer attached to me. You are no longer allowed to feed off of me. I release you completely. So this is really tangible stuff, Natasha. As you come into different pain points in your body, you can do the same process. Just give that entity freedom. You no longer need to live off of me.
It's almost like when Loni said that, like, it's been there for so long that when it's gone, like you physically have a hole. Because I know that you've, with massage therapy, have like done like the fascia, and I have like released lots of trigger points, like, and it was like my physical therapist laughed at me, like when she was like, you can't hold a coffee cup, and I'm like, I kid you not, when you took away all of the trigger points, I couldn't be all of the things that I used to be. And because people were getting upset, I then resorted back to the way that I used to take care of myself and how I used to do things for other people. And so then the trigger point just came right back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like,
you have to be the one who is okay learning, because it's going to require you to learn how to do things without those old entities or the trigger points. It's not up to other people to change their expectations of you. It is now up to you to say, I am going to need to, clasp my hands together and use my thumbs to hold my coffee cup and rest my hands on my boot.
well, and like when you were like talking about like removing, and right, like I started getting the burning pain in the middle of the shoulders, and I was like, no, I'm supported by everybody that I don't see, and all of the love. And then my brain was like, affirmations really don't work. And it's like, actually they do, because you have to fake it till you make it.
So
You have to tell.
affirmations do not work, and you can't fake it and make it. So what we are
You act as if you have. Because then remember how we were talking about stations? Like if I wanted to listen to country, but I was listening to opera.
But pretending that you're listening to opera when you're really listening to country music is what affirmations are.
So how is it that when I drove past the tree with the baby ribbon on it and thought about having a baby, and I did it twice a day for a month, I made 2 babies?
So those are not affirmations. Those are taking thought bubbles and turning them into reality. That is not an affirmation. Totally different. You physically felt in your body that you would have a baby. That is not an affirmation.
So when we're working on the entity and like my body's like, you're not strong enough to do it by yourself, and it's sending me physical pain, what am I supposed to do at that moment?
Right. So you can say, I do not feel strong. Acknowledge, I do not feel strong enough to get rid of this entity. Do I have a guide? Is my grandfather here? Can I pull in some resources because I am not strong enough? When we acknowledge what
But
our
I did, and I said that. I said I have my guides and I have everybody supporting me now. So, and that's why I said fake it until you make it, because I mean,
so
maybe I don't feel them. I don't know.
okay, so honesty is always the best, especially with entity removal. They're working off of your vibration, not on what you're pretending or saying. So if you gave me the image of your headed bodiless grandfather, correct?
Yeah.
That energy came into the space that we are working in. You don't have to believe it or not, because you manifested that image and that entity and that vibration into this space through speaking it into existence, because it was something that was real and felt in your body as a 3-year-old. When we say affirmations, they're only happening in here. Again, you're cut off at the neck. If you were to pull an affirmation, and if you were to say, I am abundant, say you didn't feel like you were abundant, but you were like, I'm abundant, and then you pulled into your body, well, in what ways am I abundant? And you pulled into your body and you felt in your body that you were abundant in blood. You felt in your body that maybe you were abundant in so for me, I always look to nature. I would put my back to a tree and see the abundance of the leaves, and I would say, if this tree is this abundant in leaves, where is my abundance in my own body? And I would bring it affirmations on their own make you pretend that you're doing something that you're not. It has to be physical. It has to be embodied, which is why when you physically drove by that tree with the baby ribbon on it, you felt something. You weren't just saying it, I'm going to have a baby. You felt it. There was a feeling and thoughts involved in driving by that tree twice a day, correct?
Yes, but can I have the feeling and the thought in the affirmation? Because at this moment in time, when I said I have guides protecting me and supporting me, I believe it, but it's not like I'm like, oh, hey, so and so standing right. Like because I haven't put the practice in to it, right? So I
I'm
don't
letting
believe.
you know that vibrationally it doesn't work because I don't feel it. If you said, when you told me that your grandfather was there with you, I felt a vibrational frequency. You saying something that you think you should be saying, of my guides are here and surrounding me and I'm protected, has no feeling. So
Yeah,
if you
that makes sense.
okay, so you need to, I'm removing this entity and I'm pulling that image of my bodiless grandfather into me. And the feeling that I got as a 3-year-old listening to that rocking chair and hearing the steps and having my grandfather overlook me is now real. Now you have a real vibrational shift of being watched over by your grandfather. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
No, that does. And I really like how spirit like totally made that into something so beautiful, because I was like, I really don't like, I get that I'm supposed to be saying it. I understand. Cause it's like, when because it really makes us face ourselves, right? Like, cause me saying, hey, entity, I'm not strong enough, But oh yeah, I've just learned in the past like 5 years that, hey, I am strong enough, but I really kind of don't feel it. But I'm just going to keep telling myself that I feel it until I feel it. And then you're like, no, Natasha, you're human design. No, in the head. Here, this happened. We know that this happened because you can recount it in many different ways with sounds and visuals and smells. So that has physically brought you into the plane of existence. So when he's coming to show you as a child, hey, this is not the way to go, but I'm going to be here and I'm going to be protecting you so that you don't have to worry about your head being separated from your body. Almost like when you said in my chart, it said it 2 or 3 times in different channels. Like, you've been here before, you've done this. It's time to really listen. So no, that's really good.
I feel like I just hit a home run, Natasha. You have no idea how good that feels that you got that.
Right? You're like, yay, she walked for the first time.
Oh man. Yes, because I don't mean to be frustrating for you, but
No,
I
I
know that
know.
I often am, and I'm not able to give you the answers that you want so often. So for you to really embody that and to hear that and to know that is it's so much more powerful than I think you even realize in the moment. So
I know I have to go back and like listen to it because I am dancing, but no, like it's almost like when you hear like the favorite part in the song and you're like, I gotta listen to it 100 more times.
yeah, so I'm really, really proud of you that you were able to turn the thoughts off and the questions off and feel it. That is the practice. That is the practice. That is the practice. Like, you got it, you integrated, and it's going to come and go. You have it so clearly right now, and it could be that right after this call it leaves, but it will come back. Okay, so remember, that's
I
part
come
of
back when I do my womb bath.
See, there you go. Yes. So Lonice, do you have anything else that you would like to share or that has come up for you?
Probably I just gotten little messages in between, and like letting go of the entity is good. And I feel that also more of my recent connections will help with the frequency energy to fill that space. I felt like I need, now that I've done it, there was almost like a dirty, he told me it felt masculine. And I got a message of, you invited me in and you wanted me. And so I came to you, and we can just stay like this and feed each other if you want, you know? And I was like, oh, well,
and you have chosen that a few times in the past, of like, you've gotten really into like this flow, and then you're like, oh yeah, come in.
Yeah.
Yep, right here, I'm good. Like,
so yeah.
let me open this up for you.
Yeah, so I got kind of also message of like to focus on like an energetic cleansing, kind of next to
Auric dancing is a great
yeah.
way to do that. Absolutely. Auric dancing, I've gotten that very clearly. Nature time, auric dancing, absolutely 100%.
Mhm.
Yes.
Stephanie, where are you located?
Southeast Missouri.
How far away is that from North Carolina? Because I was like, I really want to go to like the camp. I was like, I think I want to go and learn about Native American culture and learn how to love myself in person with these people.
What, you don't have to tell me your city, but what's like the closest big city to you?
Raleigh.
You are 12 hours.
It's like the distance from here to Buffalo. Because like, I mean, how awesome, like when she like talked about dancing, I feel like I've been Native American. I mean, if the way that they talk when they talk about the land, like there's no because like my biggest thing was when they talked about God, it was like he was this guy and he was beautiful and he was all like long white flowing hair, like Zeus, right? And I was like, that really can't be God. And then like when I hear like sing or the drums or the makeup, it just everything about their culture just makes like there's no hole when I think of my heart when I think of them.
So interestingly enough, even in our European roots that we have, a lot of us English, Irish, Dutch, German, French, kind of Euro Americans, the
Uh-huh.
Europeans had had this the same or similar cultures that got decimated by the Catholic Church. So the fact that the Native American culture is so like familiar to us is because of our ancient roots, but there's nothing left of it. So we tend to appropriate the culture that is right in front of us, which is Native American, instead of looking at our ancestry and the ancient roots of our own European pagan roots, which was very much singing, drumming, earthing. They had the hedges or mounds, there's stones that were erected. They had the stars aspect. So fire is very important to our European pagan roots. The elementals, like I was mentioning yesterday, the elementals are very important. A lot of European pagan cultures had little people and fairies and things like this. So if there's ever been anything in you that was like, oh, the little people or the fairies or that pull to that, that is your cultural roots
Yeah,
versus
but I feel more towards like the Native American culture compared to the fairy. The only thing that like the fairy that like calls to me is the fact of like kind of like Peter Pan. I get to be a kid. I get to be my true nature, right? Like that fun loving, giggling, just happy go lucky. That's what I think of when I associate fairy. Um I don't well, I mean, even maybe that's what another thing that pulled me to Waldorf. Um but when I walked into a Waldorf classroom, you want to talk about feel? I it that felt right. That felt like I had finally come home, that there was safety and security, and it was just an outpour of love. And I wanted that so much that I like did the opposite and then ran with that for 7 years.
so Danielle did say that you were from the fairy realm, right?
Yeah, that's why I was like, because I've meditated on that, or and I love Tinkerbell. I just believe that you can fly, even though like I might not be able to fly in this, I can fly in my mind.
Yeah, astral projection is very much a real thing. So the Waldorf roots are very, that's why they felt like home to me, because those were my ancestral roots that I never got to see. They're
Oh,
very pagan in origin, they're very nature based, they're very esoteric. So that is why Waldorf spoke to me and my roots and lineage when I found out that I say that I'm a European mutt because I'm English, Irish, Dutch, German, French, like, but we all, every single one of those cultures had very strong cultural aspects that were not introduced by, that were not tied to the church. They were
well,
very similar to Waldorf's aspects of being in the body and movement and drumming and celebrating and just being in happiness and joy.
I will like so this year I did more about finding out about like Halloween and found out that it actually came from Ireland specifically.
One
Well,
one
Samhain.
version, one version did. So all pagan cultures and all religions around the world have a Day of the Dead.
They're just at different times, or they tried to merge them.
They are actually all at the same time. So there's one that happens in May Day, and then there's one that happens around Halloween. So the Mexicans, Dia de los Muertos, You have other Indian cultures that have the same kind of day that honors their ancestors. In China, they have a day that honors their ancestors. So, and that happens in like January. So there is in every culture these thinning of the veils specifically that they can feel their ancestors closer to them. And most of the time they line up very similarly in timelines.
I was discussing about our last call about how when we were the light beings, and how like what was underneath the water like thousands of years ago is now emerging, and what's now on is going under. And it was just really interesting having the type of call, and how we've come so far from what we once were, but yet there's still the remnants of it. And how it makes me go back to a dream that I had, that I shared, Lonice, with Stephanie, about what my purpose was. And when I arrived to this one place, it had all of the women, right? And it just feels that like it being here in this moment in time, and I have the cat sitting right underneath me, like training style. The
I hear it.
came up and started. All of us women having all these different types of gifts and coming together and like building the strength and the bonds that we can go back to what we once were is just really cool.
Mhm.
Oh, you have your sugar bear with you.
All right. So thank you so much for being here, ladies. I'm excited. I'm interested to see if those who listen to the recording also had some next stuff going on. Like it'll be
Right.
interesting to see what happens. So as always, this is a replicable practice. You can replicate it in other areas if you get, wake up with shoulders tight, or if you get oftentimes, like I'm so used to it now, I'll get something in my hip, and as I'm walking, I'm like flicking it off of my foot. Like my hip will start going, and I'm just like imagining that I'm like kicking it off of me, because I'm like, oh, that's not mine. Nope. And just, being in that practice of moving the body, being in, getting your aura now really tightened up, making sure to get that aura really well tight, seeing that your aura is just a solid sheet of white or gold or pink or whatever you need it to be. So there's no empty void spaces that vibrational entity can attach to. So in a few weeks, you might feel it and you're like, oh, no, I release you, and just tighten it back up. So now that you're aware of it, you can hopefully, when it's not there for a little while, we notice it more when it comes back. So that's the great thing. Yeah, so thanks for playing with some entity removal today. And Omen, yes.
So recently I learned about like time telling, like telling the future using like Earth, that apparently originated in an area like what's this?
In the European.
It's not in the European, but where their trade routes connected. It connected the exact spot.
So I know that
It's
there
okay,
was
just keep going.
like in Roman, like in Rome, they had European, like they had trade routes from Asia and Russia that went through to Europe. So Rome was a popular trade route, and other areas like that. Yeah.
It was Saudi Arabia where
Okay.
it originated. It was something Mancy, not
Geomancy.
geomancy. Yeah, and so they throw down an amount of beads depending on where they fell. They'd either put one or two, and they do that like a bunch of times, and then they do it more and kind of like add all the stuff up with simple math. And
it's a divination tool.
yeah, that was the tool and the
Mhm.
thing that we learned about it in. But yeah, and then a geomancer can read the last product and tell your future. But you have to think about the question in your head before you start throwing.
And
Oh,
you were talking as well about it being an Earth, an Earth timeline. Is that what you said?
A what?
Well, it's because they have the different forms of telling the divination, and the
Okay.
there's one for fire, one for water, and the one using earth was geomancy.
Yeah, because you also have pyromancy and aquamancy.
And then
And
necromancy,
necromancy.
which is using the dead.
Mhm. Yeah.
Neat.
that's so
yeah,
cool.
something that's really easy to do with pyromancy is to write down a letter and then burn it. And they say that the smoke is able to go through the veil and get to the person on the other side of the veil, or to somebody that you're wanting to send a message to. So I heard of a woman who wrote a letter on pink paper to a person that she really wanted her book to be published by. And the woman then responded to her without her saying anything. She just did the pyromancy to get this message to this woman. And she received in the front of her book, in a pink paper, like a pink paper that was published into the book as like a letter from this publisher. And so it actually like transmuted even the pink lined paper through that pyromancy to get to the original sender, who then sended it back through a physical pink letter. So
That's so
neat.
cool.
That's cool knowing that you can do that with the living and not just to the other side of the veil.
And we
Like
often forget that we're a multi-dimensional being.
Mhm.
And so we can also send letters to ourselves in another dimensional plane to get wisdom from, so we're not having to re-experience things that we're already living out on another dimensional plane. We can send messages that way and then get them back through automatic writing, or we can ask for a letter to come in the mail. It just got, we can ask very specific things if we're so brave enough to do so.
I love it.
Yeah.
And also such thing is proven by the theory of infinity. So basically, think of an apple in a box that cannot be opened. Eventually, after like maybe a couple of months, it's going to start getting broken down. After a couple of years, it's going to be like dirt. It's going to be gone. But then after a couple of thousand of years, it's going to turn into energy in the box. After another couple of thousand, it's going to turn different kinds. And that's going to happen over so many infinite of years that it's going to run out of things to kind of create, transition into. So eventually you're going to get an apple in the box. So that is the same as the universes. So let's say there's multiple universes and the energy always changes inside. That means that there's going to be multiple of our universe if it is infinity.
And that's how we get our like dimensional, like simultaneous realities.
Like, who knows, maybe Einstein is still alive today.
Very nice.
There's this show, a documentary, A
Trip to Infinity.
It was called A Trip to Infinity, and that was a really good one if you want to like hear people just talk about the concept of infinity. And that was really cool. And he watched it and was like,
there's
love it.
Called
It's so cool. I'm so glad you joined on and shared some knowledge.
There's another one similar to that you'll really like, called Nothing and Everything or something. I'll have to look it up. It's on Netflix though, but it's very similar, and it talks about how the universe is in constant expansion. And at some point in time, Earth will have no stars because everything will expand so much at that point, whether Earth still is, occupied by anything or not. But imagine looking into a completely pitch black sky because the Earth has expanded so far away from itself.
A Trip to Infinity also talks about that.
Okay. Yeah, so it could be similar people that created that documentary. And I love that kind of breaking the brain type stuff to make it so that we have awareness. we're not so like, oh, my little problems right in front of me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it broke. I had a headache at the end. It was just like so much to think about.
Yes. Yeah, those are always good ways to, I say that those are good ways to reprogram because they create so many new neural pathways that your brain can't think the same way ever again.
Mhm.
So
Ooh.
thanks for being here, Omen. I appreciate your geomancy. I'm going to actually play with that a little bit because I love doing divination. So I'm gonna look into that and I'm gonna play with that. So thanks for bringing that up.
You might even want to learn how to actually be a geomancer because you need a geomancer to read the readings.
Well, that was just, yeah. That was
I
more
will
deep.
I will ask one of my guides if there's a geomancer in there. And if not, I will ask for one to come to me. So you can do the same thing. You can ask your guides to find a geomancer for you so that you can be taught. So they don't have to be a physical person. You would actually hear their messages in your mind.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining in, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow on regular Facebook Live.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.